All right, morning everyone. I'm Kristen Mackey from the NFL's Club Business Development, and today we're going to talk a bit about open distribution. So for those not familiar with the idea of open distribution, it's kind of the idea, the concept that a team, an artist, anybody producing a live event can sell their authentic, verified tickets on a platform aside from their primary ticketing provider. So I'll introduce that, then we'll talk about the integrated ticketing platform that we built with Kager. I'm going to have Cody Williams from the Baltimore Ravens come up and tell us about some of the really cool things that they've been doing in Baltimore. And then I'll talk a little bit about what's next for our platform. Just a little bit of background here. As I'm sure a lot of you guys know, there's more entertainment options than ever before competing for our fans' attention. So from other sports leagues, from the feeds that you have in your pocket, immersive experiences, and just any sort of entertainment source that you can get from sitting on your couch at home. So this kind of trend of having more choices than ever before, along with the broader entertainment trend of cord cutting, where you have 500 channels, but you only want to pay for those 24 that you actually watch, has really fed into the way that people consume live entertainment now. So when you think about sports in the NFL, what that really means is sorry, can you guys hear me? I feel like it's cutting out. Stand at the podium? Yeah. Oh. All right. Turn this off. All right, so you really no longer need to buy a season ticket to go to any game that you want. About 10 years ago, the old world kind of looked like this. That season ticket was your only way in. You could really only buy that from the team. The secondary market didn't really scale. It was very mom and pop, very regional, very walking around the stadium. You guys need a ticket. And the value that you paid was primarily that price that the team printed on the actual ticket. So fast forward to what it looks like in this new world. So fans can choose which games that they want to purchase. There's multiple points of sale competing with the teams on price. You've got your secondary market sites, Craigslist, eBay. Really, the sky's the limit here. Those secondary platforms are gotten very, very sophisticated. A lot of them are backed by large corporations. They're investing in technology to continue to improve the buying experience on their own platforms. The value is now determined by the open market. So this has really led to a fundamental shift between the relationship between our teams and the fans. So when we set about to create our own open distribution platform, we really had 3 goals in mind. So the first one, it had to be the best fan experience. We weren't going to sacrifice an ounce of that, and in reality, we really wanted to make it better for our fans. There had to be more data and better security. So when you're talking about selling those authentic, verified tickets, there needs to be, a data infrastructure in place to make sure that, things are getting verified when the customer is buying it. So that's, extremely important. And then lastly, we wanted to drive competition and innovation. The NFL's open ticketing platform is the first of its kind across any major sports. So what does it actually look like? Well, it's a league-wide deal. All 32 of our teams can participate. And the clubs are able to make their primary tickets, their authentic, verified primary tickets, available for sale on additional sales channels. So when you think about, when you want to buy tickets to the Patriots, for example, you could go to Google, just Google Patriots tickets. The first 3 results you're going to see are ads for secondary platforms. Some NFL fans just go directly to that secondary platform. So this lets us be where our customers are. So what our open distribution platform, and it really, to kind of really understand the power of it, needs to be married with the broader trends in mobile ticketing over the last few years. It's really resulted in more data than ever before to help us enhance and innovate and engage our fans. So what did we do with all of this data that we're getting? Well, we partnered with Kager on what we call the integrated ticketing platform. So we're ingesting all of this primary and secondary data. We worked with Kager to build a data warehouse that cleans it, standardizes it, And it's really brought the primary and secondary market together. So if I'm out there buying tickets for the Patriots, for the Vikings, for the Eagles on various different platforms, it's all coming back to me within our database. We also created a common language. So believe it or not, there's really more than one way to define an NFL season ticket, and our clubs define them in all different ways, believe me. So what did we want to do with the output of this platform? So our clubs are all still at varying stages of their analytics journeys. Some have really only put their foot on the gas over the last couple of years. Some have been at it for a while and have staffs of many people. So we wanted to create solutions that benefited all of them. So with Kager, we created a series of dashboards and reports, and I'll take you through a few of those in a minute, ranging from very high level for senior management to ones that are a little bit more into the data. We created data export. So for those teams that already have their own internal models, they could just import this new clean data directly into their existing data ecosystem. We have also partnered with Kager on a bunch of analytical models that we created, so using the data to look for insights around certain things like what's the optimal time for a team to go on sale with their single game tickets. So the first dashboard I want to share with you guys is our team executive summary. And I just have to say off the top, this is all fake data, dummy data, fake logos. So this dashboard is really made for our senior management. It helps us benchmark ticketing KPIs across the primary and the secondary. It helps quickly identify games that might need a little bit more attention that you can then dig deeper into. There's a tooltip that's not pictured here, but you can hover over any of these metrics and get a little bit deeper insight by the stadium level and the stadium sightline. So this next one, again, all fake dummy data, helps us monitor ticketing health section by section in a very clear display. So key metrics like the premium or discount versus face value, or sell through, attendance, you can see section by section on this map. And we've also created a feature with Kager. Oops, what happened to the? Well, there's a feature there that allows you to go further in and look at the data on a seat-by-seat level. So the reason I really like this dashboard is it can help teams on a daily basis when you're looking at that premium or discount versus face value around your stadium, when you're looking at the say percent sell-through or how many tickets you have left to sell in a section. You can make those decisions about dynamic pricing and how much inventory you should push out to your platforms really on an instantaneous basis. So the last dashboard I'm going to share with you guys is what we call our behavioral insights dashboard. So this one is telling what our ticket holders are actually doing with their tickets. So you can attend the game, you can skip the game, you can transfer it to somebody else, or you can resell it. But I think the real power of this dashboard comes in what's on the right-hand side, which is a metric that we developed called the realization rate. So the way that works, if you attend the game or transfer it, you're realizing 100% of the value. If the ticket goes unused, 0% is realized. If you sell it for more than face value, you're realizing more than 100%. If you sell it for less than face, you're realizing less than 100%. Very simple. So hopefully this works. Yes, so zooming in a little bit here. What we've done here is when you look at the lower left-hand side, these are the people who haven't really been attending games and have this low realization rate. So you can pretty quickly surmise that they might be at risk for not renewing their season tickets. So what Kager's done for us is created a feature where we can actually export data out of this dashboard and use it. Teams can use it to, launch a save campaign, reach out to those ticket holders who, are at risk for not renewing, understand why they're not coming, and offer them an incentive to come back and get this process started much earlier than they were used to. The last thing I want to talk about before I turn it over to Cody is data set enhancement. So what we might learn, for example, from the integrated ticketing platform about this potential customer, John Smith, he's purchased multiple tickets on secondary markets, and he's bought them in premium locations above face value. So in kind of a silo, we might learn from this that he could be a good lead for club seats. Now, we have lots of other databases at the league office. So what we might learn from them, he's highly engaged with fantasy. He opens emails. And he's an avid NFL shop purchaser. So what we could glean from that is that we should market fantasy products or shop products to him via email or maybe paid social. So the real power comes from when you marry these two together. So you could kind of from that conclude that because he's buying premium products, we could market club seats to him, maybe with a shop gift card or some other shop product via these online channels, email and paid social, for example. So that's kind of what we've done at the league office. And now I want to turn it over to Cody to share some really cool things that he's done in Baltimore.
I'm not clicking that. This just go forward. Mic on? You guys hear me? Thanks, Kristen. Appreciate it. Good morning, everybody. Just by a show of hands real quick, how many Ravens fans in the audience? All right. I was just curious. So I'm going to jump into 3 mini case studies here of how we've leveraged the open distribution model at the Ravens. Before I do, just going to talk about a couple general things just off the top. I'm going to kind of go high level pretty quickly, so if you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer them at the end if there's time, and if not, offline, happy to have any discussions about anything. So I'll jump right in. So first thing I wanted to say is that the NFL and Kager, I think, have done an outstanding job of building a platform that has allowed all 32 teams to leverage the data in different ways, right? So for anyone in the room that works for a club, you know that the level of resources, the level of sophistication, how far advanced people are with their modeling varies widely from club to club. So the ability to have these built dashboards that you can access season ticket behaviors and resale data on the secondary market, I think is huge for a lot of clubs. I was talking to one club this morning that just basically said straight up, like, we don't have the processes and the systems in place to leverage our own data, so these dashboards have been instrumental. And then on the other side of things, I think that having the ability to export the data and ingest it into our own warehouses and use it for our own modeling has been really critical to our business, at least, and I think a number of other clubs as well. The second thing that I just wanted to say is that, I think for us, a couple years ago, we started having these discussions about, okay, all of this data, we're going to get all this new data, it's awesome, everyone wants more and more and more data. It was really critical for us to sort of take a step back and say, what are our goals? Like, what are our business objectives, and how is the data going to help us achieve those goals? I think for just a club or anyone who is going to be working for a club, that's a critical conversation to have before you jump into something where you're going to have this influx of new rich data. So I'll jump into case studies pretty quickly. The first one I want to talk about is pricing. So season ticket pricing, right? A conversation that would have happened a few years ago in our building would have went something like this. Hey, we haven't raised season ticket prices in a couple years, so I think it's time to do that. I think we should raise them 5%. How about we raise them 7%? And then what do? We raise them 6% across the board. And then the same conversation happens a couple years later, right? So this offseason, what we wanted to do is sort of look at things a little bit differently and make our decisions based on value rather than just sort of this uniform arbitrary price increase. So we set out to create a metric, season ticket value, which is essentially the cost for someone to go and buy a ticket on the secondary market to every game within a certain price category divided by the actual price of that ticket, right? So, to illustrate this, if you look at the chart, if you were to buy a ticket in section A, you're going to get 133% of the value is 130% of the price of the ticket. So when we look at should we increase prices, there's obviously a window there for us to increase prices without alienating the customer. Comparatively, if you look at section G, 101%. So basically the price matched the value. So in that case, we didn't want to raise our season ticket prices because we felt like the value was fair. To take this a step further, we were in a fortunate position for many years at the Ravens where we basically renewed our season ticket holders at like 99%, 100% every single year. It was like the best possible scenario. And then all of a sudden that kind of stopped the last couple of years. And so we started to, everyone's going crazy, like why are our fans leaving and what's the deal and how can we fix this? So we looked at that like, well, we have this value metric, right? Like let's see if there's a correlation between where people are leaving and what the value of their ticket. So, and what we did find was we took the data from the Kager dashboards for sight lines, and we were able to look at, okay, if we break it down by sight line horizontally, which we currently do in our stadium, and then implement a vertical segmentation as well, we're able to then identify areas of the stadium where people are leaving and the fact that it's correlated to the value of their ticket being lower than other values. So it's a direct correlation, essentially. So from that came this awesome project that we did this offseason where we sort of reimagined our price categories. So we've never employed vertical price segmentation in our building before, but what we found when we did this was that the last 25% of rows in all of our price categories were the area where the value was the lowest and people were leaving. So we set out to build this map a little bit differently than it used to be. We employed vertical segmentation for the first time, and essentially, the thought behind all of this is, we all have revenue mandates, right, with our gate revenue and our season ticket revenue, and we have to exceed those targets and those mandates. But there's a way to do it where you don't just have to uniformly raise prices across the board. You can do it in a way that doesn't really offend or alienate certain season ticket members that might already be paying too much for their seats. All right, use case number 2, so revenue generation. We all have to generate revenue, right? It's obviously not as easy as everyone thinks. So how did Kager and how did the open distribution model help us do this very recently? We've had almost 300,000 unique records ingested into our database over the last couple seasons. And if you think about it, you don't need data to do this, but someone who's bought a ticket or someone who's attended a game is probably going to be your best lead to buy season tickets, right? So we just took those people and we set out to just create a simple email campaign. So we did this just this November through January, up until our divisional game when we lost to how many Titans fans in the room? Good. All right. So we lost to the Titans. That's when we ended the campaign, but we would have kept it going. But essentially what we did was we took all these people, we applied some filters, right? We did some location filters, get the opposing team fans out of there that bought single game tickets, layer in some of the highly significant variables from some of our other models, so discretionary income and previous ticket spend, and then basically just do an email campaign. So we sent them pretty simple emails, just letting them know, hey, you've spent a lot of money with us on single game tickets, maybe it's time to buy PSL. That email actually has nothing to do with this campaign. I just had to give some love to Lamar, MVP, yeah. So anyway, so we did this 2 months, and here are the results, right? 336 new PSL sold across each level of the stadium, 96 lowers, 88 clubs, 152 uppers. And the uppers are significant, right? Because we talk about that value metric, and oftentimes the upper level, that's where the value might be the lowest. And so we were able to generate 152 upper deck PSL sales. So that was really good for us. And that equated to over $1 million in revenue. So $1 million in revenue from a group of leads that we did not have to pay for. We did not have to do a marketing campaign. We didn't have to prospect. They just came from the open distribution model. And I think the most significant number on this slide is that this campaign cost us $0. All right, last thing I'll talk about, fan experience. At the top of, should be every club's priority list is improving the fan experience, maintaining the fan experience. So how have we been able to improve the fan experience with data from the open distribution model, right? So the first thing is every team wants to know everybody that's in their stadium. Previously, we knew primary single game buyers and we knew our season ticket buyers. We didn't know who they were bringing. We didn't know the secondary buyers. We didn't know who they were transferring tickets to. With mobile ticket transferring data, with secondary market data, we've been able to pretty much triple the amount of fans, unique fans that we know were in our building from 17 to 19. And so how does that help us? Well, just take a simple demographic variable like age. And we basically can debunk like previous assumptions about who's in our building on game day. So it used to be, all right, we know that the demographics of our PSL purchasers are an older demographic, so that must be everybody in the stadium, right? Well, the eye test is telling us that's not the case. So now that we have all this data, let's prove it wrong. So we looked at just the total attendees in 17, 18, 19, and we saw the age was decreasing. But then we took it a step further and looked at just the new people coming into the building in 19, and it was almost 10 years younger than what we had previously thought, right? So what does that do for us as an organization? It allows us to put data behind decisions and get things passed through like a game day entertainment budget that previously wouldn't have been. So here's something that we did with this data that probably wouldn't have been approved a couple years ago. Some of you may have seen this. I hope this plays. So that's a mixed reality Raven that if anyone saw our Thursday night football game in December against the Jets, we debuted. Really awesome. So if you couldn't pick up on that from the video, it's basically a CGI Raven that kind of flies through the video boards in bowl, and it's overlaid on a live crowd shot. So people are literally looking at the boards and seeing this Raven like flying over their own head. So really, really cool activation for people and fans, but geared towards a younger audience, right? So like the younger audience that wants these enhanced experiences at a game. And so just some quick results on what this did for us, aside from the in-bowl experience. It was the 7th most viewed video on social media in 2019. Guys, we had Lamar Jackson, the MVP. We went 14-2. We had a ton of awesome video content throughout the entire season, and this was the 7th most viewed video. 3 million views on Twitter, 400,000 views on Instagram, the most viewed video on Twitter in 2019 by far. And then House of Highlights picked it up, tons of engagements. We generated a ton of value for our naming rights partner, which is also huge. And so just an example of how just taking a simple demographic analysis of our fan base can lead to something that's really awesome in stadium. And now I'll hand it back to Kristen.
So I just want to wrap it up with 2 things that we're doing going forward with the integrated ticketing platform data. So the first thing that we are working on is our voice of the fan. You know, we wanted to make the insights and information we had from the integrated ticketing platform available to other departments around the league office. So we thought a great place to start would be with our consumer insights team and their voice of the fan survey. So the way this survey worked up until last season was at the beginning of the season, we'd get a list of every team's season ticket holders, and then on the Wednesday before game day, we'd get a list of the single game buyers. Well, what we learned from the integrated ticketing platform is that most of the ticketing transfers and a lot of purchases occur in those few days before game day. So we were sending the survey to people who weren't necessarily attending the game. So what we did last season was we used the data from the integrated ticketing platform, so we only deployed it to fans who actually attended the game. So we're reaching a much wider audience of single game buyers and transfer recipients. So what happened with this? Well, it was a better user experience. We weren't sending the survey to people who hadn't been to the game. We massively increased the number of responses as well as the data quality. We're asking people to give us thoughts and opinions on something that they were at yesterday versus not at all. And we saw a big increase in the response rate among those primary ticket holders. So where are we going to take this? So last year was our first year doing this, so there's some process improvements we can make. But the real power of this is going to be combining it with the integrated ticketing platform, so we can understand, what people's thoughts and opinions are and how they could be driving their behavior, and then take that and improve various aspects, help our teams improve various aspects of the game day experience. So that's one thing. The last thing that I wanted to share with you guys is what we call the Ticketing Health Index. So this is another partnership that we did with Kager. So I've talked a lot before about the various different ways that you can, look at, your stadium, whether it's, attendance or premium or discount versus face value, renewal rate, things like that. So those metrics are obviously very helpful to our teams, but they can be less powerful when, used in isolation. So think about attendance, for example. Great to understand, what the demand for your overall, product is, but not necessarily helpful when you're trying to figure out how much of a price increase, certain sections can withstand without sacrificing renewal rates. So what we wanted to do in partnership with Kager was use their machine learning capabilities to create this value score that really helps the club understand their stadium in a single metric that can pull together all of these different variables. So it looks a little something like this. So we've got a range of scores that indicate whether a section was overvalued, in line with the market value, or undervalued. And our hope is that when teams look at this, they can, see some insights about certain sections that they might not have noticed from those individual metrics. So this is also helpful because, it can help teams compare, different games within a season. They can compare to previous seasons. They can benchmark themselves against their peers and their league averages. And so this is hot off the presses. I think it's rolling out to our team sometime next week. And I'm really glad that I was able to share it with you guys. So I think we have a couple minutes for questions. You want to come up? Yeah. Anyone out there? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. My mic on? Yeah, so I think, what I touched on earlier about having the systems in place and the processes in place has really been critical for us in that area. We've got our own database, data warehouse set up that is pulling in our merchandise data, pulling in our concessions data, pulling in voice of the fan, things like that we can then layer on top of sort of all of the other things. I think one area that it's been critical for us is our retention modeling, really understanding that some of those other variables aside from just ticket behavior play a role in that. And yeah, I think that's sort of the next step, right? So how do we now take this identifiable data, customer data, and make it actionable in the stadium? So loyalty programs, concessions discounts, merchandise discounts, in-seat ordering, things like that I think are the next wave of how we'll do that. Can you speak up? Yeah. So he asked how we go about putting a value to a post on social media. We actually use a third-party vendor that has a proprietary formula based on engagements, basically. With that said, I think we've sort of been dabbling in our own metrics, which, if you want to talk offline about sort of how we arrive at those. But for us, we do everything based on engagement. We don't necessarily not value views, but engagements to us are a more valuable metric on social. Yeah.
One more, yes. So the question was about our realization rate metric and about how we kind of capture value for basically ticket transfers. So if it's a ticket transfer that we can capture, so it's via mobile, then we value that at 100%. If you still have a paper ticket and you're handing it to your friend or business partner or whoever, we can see, that whether or not that ticket was used. So then that value would be, the 0 or 100%. But, we won't know who used it if it's still that paper ticket. All right, I think that's it. I think we had a 10:55 cutoff, but we can answer any questions after.
Thank you.
Thank you.